Learning target 4 isn't really learning target. I'm just reminding you how to solve a system of 3 equations using reduced row echelon form in your graphing calculator. Because you're going to need that for learning target 5. So here we have a system of 3 equations. You can use matrices to solve that so that you can figure out what D and E and F equal instead of having to do it by hand. So on your note sheet, it gives you step-by-step instructions for you to go back and review if you need to. So we're going to do this one together, just practicing using your calculator. You guys did this in Algebra 2 last year, so it's not brand new. All right, so you're going to go to the matrix menu, which is second reciprocal button. That's underneath the math button. And we need to actually input all of the coefficients and everything into a matrix. So you scroll over to edit. You can choose whatever matrix you want. I don't care. I'm just going to use A. Remember that matrices are labeled by rows and columns. So we have 3 rows by 4 columns. So you need to have a 3 by 4 matrix. So this doesn't say 3 by 4. You need to change it to say 3 by 4. Matrix menu. Second reciprocal button. It's the button underneath the math button. Scroll over to edit. And then change it to say 3 by 4. Pick A or B or C or whatever. Everyone with me. Okay, so then we're going to enter all the coefficients in order, like it's written right here. So the first equation, we're going to type in 2, 1, negative 2, watch your negatives, 7. Then we're going to do that again for the next equation. 1, negative 2, negative 5, negative 1. And we're going to do that for the next equation. 4, 1, 1, negative 1. Now, we have to exit the matrix before we do anything else, because if not, you'll be typing into the matrix and then it gets confusing. All right? So second quit. Everything's in there. Just get out of it. Now, again, we want to solve the matrix. We want to know what D equals, what E equals, what F equals. All right? That's why it was very important that when I did this, that all the D's were lined up and the E's were lined up and the F's were lined up. Everything was a certain way. Okay? So I'm going to go back to the matrix menu. This time scroll over to math. And you can scroll up or down. It's kind of in the center. You're going to choice B, reduced row echelon form. RREF. And click enter. Then you just need to input what matrix you want to solve. So you go back to the matrix menu. And you click on, I used A, so click on A. Hit enter. And it tells you, this means 1D, and this is 1E and 1F. It tells me that D equals negative 1, E equals 5, and F equals negative 2. So I know what all of those are equal to. And you guys should have done this before. Just reminding you. Questions about any of those steps? Again, they're on the note sheet for reference when you do your homework. We good with that? All right, that's all learning target 4 was. So just reminding you how to do that. We're actually going to use that to do learning target 5. Okay? All right. In learning target 5, you're given 3 coordinates, and you're told that the circle passes through all 3 coordinates. All right? If you were really lucky, you'll be able to draw those out, be able to figure out what the radius was, but a lot of the times you can't. All right? There's 3 random points in the circle. So we need to write an equation in standard form is what it asks for. Identify the center and radius from that standard form. There's a few steps to do in order to actually get back to standard form. All right? So I have an x, y in each of these points. And so the easiest way for me to do this, it's going to seem like it's a little lengthy, but it's not that bad. The easiest way to do this is to go through and input each of your coordinates individually into general form and solve so that you have D plus E plus F equals some value. So that you have a system of 3 equations. You have one equation for each coordinate. Once we have a system of three equations, we can solve it in our calculator, which we just did 5 seconds ago. And then I can go from there. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is go through and write a system of three equations. So I've color-coded this for you. General form is written up here. So my first point is 1, 3. That means wherever I see an x or a y, I put in a 1 or a 3, depending on what we're talking about, whichever corresponds, until we can solve or simplify the equation. So I've got 1 squared plus 3 squared plus 1d plus 3e plus f equals 0. So all I do is fill in general form with my coordinates. I need to rewrite that so that the constants are all on the other side of the equation. So 1 squared is 1, and 3 squared is 9, and 1 plus 9 is 10. So I've got 10 plus 1d plus 3e plus f equals 0. And I need to rewrite that again. So I have d plus e plus f equals, so I need to move the constants. So I have 1d plus 3e plus f equals negative 10. You do not have to write the steps for every single one of these. I'm not going to write the steps for the next 2 of them. But you have to have 3 equations. Any question about where that equation came from? So I'm going to do it again for the next coordinate, 5, 5. So I would put it into general form. 5 squared plus 5 squared. Well, 5 squared is 25. Plus another 5 squared is another 25. So you have 50 plus 5d plus 5e plus f equals 0. And we need to rewrite that so that all the constants are on the same side. So 5d plus 5e plus f equals negative 50. Questions about that? And we do it once more for the last coordinate. So you have 5 squared, 25, plus 3 squared, that's 9. So 25 plus 9 is 34. Plus 5d plus 3e plus f equals 0. And again, we solve the equation so that, or simplify the equation so that all the constants are on one side. That's 3 equations. Every single time you do this, it should always equal a negative number. Why should it equal a negative number? Right, you're squaring the values on the left-hand side, so those are going to be positive. And so you have the other going to be positive, and so you're going to always be subtracting. So always make sure you have a negative there. Questions about where the 3 equations came from? You can write as little or as much work as you want to make sure you get those correct. You can do them in your head, do them in your head, whatever. Okay? So once I have the 3 equations, then I'm going to go back and solve for d, e, and f. I need to know what d equals, what e equals, and f equals. That is where we use your graphing calculator. All right, so back to the matrix menu. I would go over to edit and just type over the last one we did. There's no point in to keep making new matrices. So I've got 1d, 3e. Make sure you put in 1f and negative 10. 5d, 5e, 1f, negative 50. And then 5d, 3e, 1f, and negative 34. Once you input your matrix, again, get out of your matrix so they don't retype into something by accident. And then go back to the matrix menu, go to Math, and find choice B, Reduced Row Echelon Form. and then go back to your matrix menu and choose the matrix you typed in. So I know that D is equal to -6, E is equal to -8, and F is equal to 20. Any questions so far? Okay, so we got to do all that work so we can get to this point. So I'm going to use general form one more time. This time, I'm not going to substitute anything in for the x's and y's. All right, I'm done with the coordinate. And now I have coefficients for D, E, and F. I know what D, E, and F are. So I can substitute those in, and then it's just a learning target 3 question. All right, it's a general form question that we transfer into standard form. So I have x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 8y plus 20 equals 0. So I know what D, E, and F are now. That's all I'm substituting in. Any questions? Have I lost anyone to this point? All right, so this is just a learning target 3 question. This is what we did last, right? We're just going to rewrite this and put it in standard form. So I'm going to rewrite it so that I put the x's together and the y's together and the constant on the other side. I'm going to go through and complete the square for both x and y. So how do I complete the square? What do I do for x? B divided by 2 squared, right? So b is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. And -3 squared is 9. So we're going to add 9 here, and we're going to add 9 over here. Same thing for y. We're completing the square. So b divided by 2, -8 divided by 2 is -4. -4 squared is 16, so we're going to add 16. Now we're going to factor. We have perfect square trinomials. Again, the factor is always just b divided by 2. So -6 divided by 2 is -3. So I have x minus 3 squared. -8 divided by 2 is -4. So y minus 4 squared. And then -20 plus 9 plus 16 is 5. So this is the first part of the answer. They ask for an equation in standard form. There it is. Questions about how we got there? Second part of the question is to give the center and the radius. So here, standard form, I rewrote it, original standard form. The center is always HK. So what is the center for this circle? 3, 4. Not -3, -4, so be careful about that. And then what's the radius of this circle? Square root of 5. And we can just leave it that way. I'd rather have that than a decimal. If I have the center and the radius, then I can graph it too. So if I asked you to graph it, you could do that as well. If you graph the center, we would estimate the square root of 5 and graph the circle. Questions about any of that? That's learning target 5. Take 3 points that are on the circle, and you rewrite an equation in standard form. Okay.